Thank you guys for joining us today for Listen, Eat, Repeat, going over intuitive eating from our HSC Nutritional Sciences students. We have Jessica, Anna, and Emma today, and looking forward to this great information.
Great. Well, thank you, Lindsay. Again, I'm Anna, this is Jess, and this is Emma, and we're talking about intuitive eating. Our presentation is titled Listen, Eat, Repeat, and it's going to be a 30,000 feet overview of intuitive eating. So I thought we would start by asking you all a question to kind of feel out what you already know about this topic. So how would you define intuitive eating? We'll give you guys a couple minutes to answer the question in the chat. Listening to your body and honoring healthy cravings, good. Eating not at set times, but when your hunger kicks in to tell you perfect. Great, these are all really good. Yeah, perfect. Yeah, these are great. Hey, yeah, you guys have a good understanding so far. Great, so we'll get more into this now.
So it does sound like you all have a really good idea so far of intuitive eating. And so we hope that you can still learn some more details from our presentation today. We did want to start with just a little PSA here, or TSA, since we're going on a little journey. So we want to let you know that people can be certified in intuitive eating as a program, but we are not those people. We are still just students. And so our goal today is to give you a sort of 30,000 foot overview of intuitive eating. We want you to keep in mind that some principles of intuitive eating do need to be kind of individualized, especially for certain conditions or disease states that you might be living with. And so if you are interested in applying intuitive eating to your own life in a really detailed way, we recommend that you seek out a provider who is certified in this topic so that they can help you with that individualization piece. So we wanted to share some objectives with you first. The first one is that we hope you'll be able to distinguish the difference between mindful and intuitive eating, recognize the 10 principles of intuitive eating, and then explain the importance of intuitive eating in the modern food environment that we live in today. So to start things off, we do want to spend a little time distinguishing mindful versus intuitive eating. A lot of people use these terms interchangeably, but they are a little bit different. So we just wanted to explain that a little bit. Mindful eating is more focused on the physical aspects of eating and making sure that we're listening to our bodies and focused on our food while we're eating it. This includes listening to hunger cues, both for when we should start eating, as well as when we're starting to feel full and stopping eating then. It also does include focusing on our food while we're eating it. So trying not to multitask while we're eating, which I know is something that a lot of us do, including me, but it is something that maybe we should think about and try and work on. And another aspect is thinking about satisfaction, making sure that we are choosing foods that satisfy our body and our taste buds.
They have
Oh,
the carrot in the background.
hold please. Is that better? Okay, sorry about that. Didn't know that was happening. So in contrast, intuitive eating does include some principles of mindful eating, but it thinks about them in a sort of broader context. So for example, it does include listening to our bodies, listening to our hunger, and when we're full, trying to focus on our food while we're eating it. But it understands those things in the context of healing our relationship with our bodies and with food. By that, we mean that many aspects of society have influenced or even damaged our relationships with food and our bodies, and intuitive eating really seeks to restore that relationship and heal it. It's important to note that intuitive eating is not weight-based, and so it is not a diet. And it's really sort of weight tracking and dieting is sort of counter to intuitive eating, which we'll get into more in here in a little bit. So we also wanted to sort of show you the 10 principles of intuitive eating. These are taken directly from the book originally published by Evelyn Tribble and Elise Resch, who are both dietitians. They are the ones who originally devised this program of intuitive eating. And so these are the 10 principles that they came up with that people sort of work through as they are working intuitive eating into their lives. We're going to go through each of these and just kind of give a brief definition of each one, and then we're going to highlight some of the ones that we think are most important. So the first principle is reject the diet mentality. This refers to unlearning diet-based behaviors and perceptions of what our bodies should look like. The second one is honor your hunger. This refers to one of those aspects of mindful eating that we were just talking about, and it encourages us to listen to our hunger and fullness cues and make sure that we're providing our bodies with enough calories and macronutrients to fuel it, including ones that are often demonized by society or social media, like carbs and fat, because we do need those things. The third one is to make peace with food. This encourages us to give ourselves unconditional permission to eat all types of food so that we don't sort of cage ourselves into feeling deprived. The fourth one is challenge the food police. This asks us to challenge both internal and external voices that do things like label certain foods or behaviors as good or bad, and really think about why those rules have been created and whether or not they're actually serving us well. The next one is to discover the satisfaction factor. This encourages us to find contentment and satisfaction from the eating experience itself. This can be challenging if we haven't rejected the diet mentality first, so that's kind of why that one's right up at the top for us. Next up is feel your fullness. This is pretty similar to honor your hunger, and the idea is that it just asks us to feel the signals from our body indicating hunger and fullness. And one of the ways we can enhance that feeling is by pausing while we're eating to assess how hungry we still are or how full we might be feeling. Next up is cope with your emotions with kindness. This reminds us that we will all experience negative emotions in our lives. That's just a normal thing. And we can respond to those emotions with healthy coping mechanisms that don't necessarily involve food, since using food to cope can actually sometimes hurt us in the long run. Next up is respect your body. This emphasizes that all bodies deserve dignity. And the ninth one is movement, feel the difference. This reframes the purpose of exercise as being more for making our bodies feel good, whatever that might mean for you. So if you're a gym rat and you love your gym routine and that's what makes your body feel good, I love that for you. And that can be the movement that makes your body feel good. For some of us, it's dancing alone in our living room to our favorite song. For other people, maybe it's just a quick walk around the office. But whatever movement makes your body feel good, that's what we want to embrace, not necessarily what sometimes social media will make us believe is the only way to exercise by running 10 miles a day or lifting 600 pounds of weight. And then the last one is to honor your health with gentle nutrition. This encourages us to choose foods that make our bodies feel good and our taste buds happy. And it reminds us that not everything we eat has to be quote unquote healthy. We should be able to glean satisfaction from our food because we are enjoying it. So like I mentioned, over the next couple slides, we'll highlight the 3 principles that we think are most important for you to take away today. Obviously, this was a lot. We just like blasted through the 10 principles of intuitive eating, but definitely if you have any questions, you're welcome to ask us, or you can also, we have some references at the end of the slides, and you're welcome to explore those as well to learn more about these.
Okay, so the first one we wanted to highlight was reject the diet mentality. This is the first one on the list of the 10 principles, and it is the foundation for all the others. So it's one of the reasons we wanted to highlight it because they all kind of fall back on this one. So as mentioned, rejecting the diet mentality refers to unlearning diet behaviors. This can include things like counting calories or macros, feeling the need to restrict food intake, and choices based on what you're already eating during the day, weighing yourself every day, and viewing certain foods as good or bad. Another important aspect of this one, of rejecting the diet mentality, is allowing ourselves to be frustrated with diet culture. This culture has taught us that our bodies must look a certain way for our entire lives. And when our bodies don't look that way, this culture promises us quick and easy fixes with these diets to lose weight and conform to this perfect image that they're portraying. And the culture has caused many of us a lot of stress and other negative emotions throughout the years. And it's okay to be frustrated or even outright angry about that fact. Another reason we wanted to focus on this principle is because it can be one of the most challenging to implement in our daily lives. It's easy to say reject the diet mentality, but when it's all over, especially like social media, and you're seeing all of these things, it's really hard to consciously and unconsciously do that. So it's something that most of us grew up with, like as we mentioned, and it's deeply ingrained in us. So it's hard to unlearn. Even if we unlearn it at an individual level, it can be hard to maintain that in society and still look a certain way and expect us to work and have those individualized goals. So then challenging the food police, this is kind of goes off of the reject the diet mentality. It's more challenging the internal and external voices that are promoting that diet mentality. It's confronting those voices and that are promoting the diet mentality. These thoughts might flag certain foods as that good or bad, or imply that you're a good or bad person for eating a certain amount of calories or weighing a certain amount. This can be difficult to do because we first need to unlearn the diet mentality ourselves, but others around us might not have done the same. A lot of the times, sometimes the things that we're told by trusted loved ones or even healthcare providers about food and eating follows the diet mentality too. So we have to find a way to integrate that information that we need to respect ourselves, our bodies, and our needs and individualize that for ourselves. It's especially difficult to challenge the internal voices we have because they seem so real and reasonable to us. But as we get better at recognizing these principles, and therefore then we can challenge that diet mentality from the external voices, and then we can recognize and challenge our own internal voices with that. So, especially hard to challenge the internal voices. You want to ask yourself, first, is this internal or external? Why does this rule exist? And is this rule actually helpful to me? And then we chose to highlight respect your body. Again, we're going to talk about social media influences and stuff like that. But I think especially with the boom of social media, this one is a big one to look at just because like we're seeing all of these like influencers and models, and we all think we should look like one sort of way. And it's just not possible biologically and genetically, and all bodies deserve dignity. So again, this reflects back on the reject the diet mentality of image of perfection. Dieting will not turn your body into something it is not programmed to be. And even body neutrality is a huge step in the right direction. And the most fundamental part of respecting your body is remembering, again, that all bodies deserve dignity, no matter your sex, gender, ethnicity, size, ability, or any other factor. Your body does deserve that respect and dignity and health. So don't let the diet mentality tell you that you have to look a certain way or weigh a certain way. Focus on accepting your body as it is now and focus on all the wonderful things that your body does for you.
Okay. And I saw in the chat, Sophia put on social media, Lizzo is inspiring on this point. I dig her. Yeah, she's awesome. She's so yeah, she's a good inspiration there, and a good point into social media influences. So there's a lot of misinformation that spreads through social media, and it is important to decipher what is true and what is not from what you're seeing and hearing online. So again, I just want to see you guys put in the chat maybe some things you have already noticed or seen on social media that you thought might not really be evidence-based or true. So yeah, we'll give you a couple minutes there. Okay, they sell so many bottle of pills that are supposed to be miracles for losing weight. Yes, I see that all the time on ads. That's a good one. All right. Well, yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. And I'm sure we've all experienced this before. Sorry to put you guys on the spot with that question. But yeah, it is common to see a lot of misinformation out there. Another big social media influence are fad diets. I saw one last summer that was called the watermelon diet, and it was just strictly eating watermelon just all day long. And I did not look into seeing why people thought this was a good idea, but it just goes to show how important it is to fact check the information you see and do some digging to see if these sorts of diets are in fact evidence-based and safe or not. And then on top of these things, we constantly see online images that are meant to show us what an ideal body is supposed to look like. And all of these influences online can lead us to have a distorted image of ourselves and really leads us to having a distorted way of thinking that may affect our ability to successfully intuitively eat. And lastly, we wanted to talk about social and cultural influences. There are constant stimuli to eat through billboards, ads on your phones, etc. We live in a very fast-paced society where we are constantly busy and on the go. This makes convenience very appealing to consumers, and there is a constant pressure to eat quickly, on the go, and while working, leading to some beginning to view cooking as a chore and something that is just too time-consuming to accomplish. However, there are more and more trends leaning towards intuitive eating now. More influencers are posting about quick recipes to make it easier to cook and have on the go. And more people are talking about mindful and intuitive eating approaches online, such as how to focus on your food while we eat and similar ideas. We can choose to direct our focus and energy more towards these parts of social media and culture to help incorporate into intuitive eating more readily into our daily lives.
Okay, so next up, we have a little Kahoot game to play. It'll just be a little review of all the things we've discussed here. So this is kind of a step-by-step of how to join Kahoot if you haven't done that before. So if you want to grab a separate device like your phone, you can also do it on the device you're using for Zoom too. It's just a little easier if you happen to have a separate device with you. You'll go to the website kahoot.it. And then here in a second, I'll pull up the game pin on the screen here, and you'll be able to enter that at kahoot.it. We'll also put it in the chat. And then Kahoot will automatically give you an anonymous nickname. It'll be something goofy like Quick Zebra or something like that. And then the question and answer options will appear here on Zoom, but they will also appear on your device. And then you will select your answer choice on your device. And then once everyone's joined, we'll get started. So let me. And you can also scan this QR code if that's easier for you. 306 in the chat. The nicknames are sometimes one of the funniest parts. I would like to be a magic hamster. Diplomat dog's a good one. I'll give everybody just another minute or two to join.
And if you guys want to answer just in the chat and can't figure out this, that's also an option to just participate that way.
We'll go ahead and start it. The game pin will actually stay in the chat and also in the bottom right corner of the screen. So if you're still working on joining, you'll still be able to join partway through. All right. Oh, it's thinking about it. Here we go. Good. So almost everybody got this one. Mindful eating, the best definition here is purposely paying attention to your eating experience while you're having it. And yeah, so that's good, focusing on both our hunger and satiety as we're eating, and then also the experience of eating, like flavors and textures and smells and things like that. Glad Giraffe has taken the lead. Good. Yeah, so most people got this one too. The best answer here would be rejecting the diet mentality, because if we are intentionally avoiding reading that diet section of a magazine, what we're doing is we're kind of saying, I'm not going to let these external forces tell me what my body should look like or what kind of food I should be eating. I'm going to let my body tell me what I'm going to do with my food intake and things like that. So rejecting the diet mentality is the best answer for this one. Wise Giraffe has now taken the lead. The giraffes are competing. Good. Everybody got this one. So yeah, definitely honoring your health and your taste buds is a part of intuitive eating. Glad Giraffe is back in the lead. Yeah, so almost everyone got this one too. So mindful eating is not exactly the same as intuitive eating. Remember, we mentioned that some of the aspects of mindful eating are included in intuitive eating, but intuitive eating views them in that framework of healing our relationship with food and with our bodies. So they're not exactly the same, but they are pretty similar. Knowing Iguana is now in the lead, but the giraffes are still in the top 5. So. Yeah, so almost everyone got this one too. So the one here that is one of the principles of intuitive eating is rejecting the diet mentality. Like we mentioned, that one's like at the top of the list because it's the base of all the rest of them. The rest of these are phrased similarly to some of the principles, but they are not actually the principles listed. So for the red triangle and the blue diamond, we would really want to honor those things. We want to honor our hunger and also our fullness and listen to those cues and respect them while we're eating. And then for the green square, instead of following the rules of the food police, we want to challenge the food police and remind ourselves that we know what's best for our bodies and we don't need other sources telling us those things. Knowing Bear, still at the top. Okay, last question. Good, yeah. So listening for when you're feeling full is an example of feeling your fullness. It does kind of go along with respecting your body, but in terms of intuitive eating, the respect your body principle is more referring to respecting how our body looks and not necessarily comparing it to what society might tell us as an ideal. So it has more to do with respecting our body's appearance, but it is important to respect your fullness cues as part of respecting your body as well. So good. Let's see how the podium turned out. We have Wise Giraffe in 3rd place. Glad Giraffe in 2nd place. And in first place, we have, drum roll, Knowing Bear. Thank you all for indulging our Kahoot. We hope it was helpful for solidifying some of this information as well. I'm going to go ahead and X out of it so it stops playing music for you all. Okay, and I'll just put this back on just to, here are our references. And like Lindsay said, we'll send out the slides afterwards, so you'll be able to explore these some more too if you are interested. Does anyone have any questions that we can answer?
Yeah, great information. While we give everyone an opportunity to drop your question in the chat if you'd like. For the ladies, great information. I think it really helps shine a light on that. There's not one perfect way that's the best way to eat for everyone. I think it's great to show, like many things, it's kind of gets a little bit more flexible with depending on each person and looking at the individual. So I think that's great and important to highlight that there's not necessarily one perfect way, and that we can look at as an individual aspect of kind of what works best for you, and really to pay attention to those cues. So great information. So I guess I will kind of maybe ask a question or put you all on the spot. And is intuitive eating something you all practice, or kind of dabbling with, or how do you guys approach your thoughts with intuitive eating?
I can go. So for me personally, I've kind of been on a journey with my own eating and some disordered eating, unfortunately. And so some of these principles have applied to my life, really, especially like listening to my hunger and accepting my body where it is now and respecting my body for where it is now. And really sort of pushing back on some of those dieting things that I learned from all sorts of places throughout my entire life, so that I can listen to what my body needs and not feel confined to restricting certain things, like carbs or sugars or anything like that. And so, yeah, I definitely apply these to my life. It is still tricky. I've been working on it for like over a year. And I'm not going to say that I'm perfect at this by any stretch of the imagination. But I have noticed that it's helpful, especially really listening to my body in terms of how much food I need, or what kinds of foods sound good when I'm thinking about what kind of meals do I want to make this week. I want to think about, well, this week, this particular kind of meal sounds good. Another week, a different one does too. And not like forcing myself to eat the same things all the time just because I think that they're healthy, which is something that I was prone to doing before. So I think these principles have definitely helped me. I will say that intuitive eating is not perfect for disordered eating. There are some parts of it that don't align as well with some of the things that I've done in therapy, say. So if that's something that you in the audience are individually struggling with, I would say there are some principles here that are helpful, but I would still recommend that you see a dietitian or a therapist to help you with that. But they are still really good things that have improved my quality of life for sure.
Just to input a little bit on my experience with it, I practiced it some, especially my dad was military, and growing up, like they had, 10 minutes to eat or something. So I'm just always eating so fast. So trying to like have a good experience with my food and just like slow down, be present and have like that overall experience, I think is kind of where I um went from mindful eating and then into intuitive eating, because I've always tried to like focus on my hunger cues and that kind of thing, but having that experience with the food and your like surrounding and stuff like that, that's where I think I've kind of moved into like practicing intuitive eating a bit more.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same way. I grew up, my father is from a very Russian culture, and we show our love by food. And so it's constantly like, oh, eat more, eat more, eat more. So I kind of grew up just like, overeating kind of. And that's something I've really had to practice, just like Jess said, like kind of enjoying the meal. And it's okay to have leftovers when you're going out. You don't have to eat it all in one sitting. So different things like that to make a good relationship with the food, but also with your own body, and like seeing those cues when you should stop eating, things like that, so you're not over full or you don't feel sick after, have been good things I've been practicing a lot more in my life.
Any other questions that we can answer?
I'm going to ask another one if there's not one in the chat. So is this something that really, if someone wanted to follow intuitive eating, would you recommend that they still utilize a registered dietitian, or is this something people can, go ahead and do on their own? Or what are the benefits if they want to look at this with utilizing a registered dietitian when it comes to intuitive eating?
So I would still say, especially depending on the background of why someone maybe potentially is doing, wanting to follow intuitive eating, if it's just to better their environment, and like relationship with food, then there is a book on it. But I'm pro dietitian. So I would always say, still like meet with a dietitian, kind of talk about the reasoning behind it, and they can still lead you into, the direction that the reasoning behind of why you're wanting to do intuitive eating, and they can kind of focus it around you and your experience to make sure that you can really focus, especially on like certain principles, if there's specific ones that tend to stand out more to you, just so you're not, getting into all of that information right at once, because it can be overwhelming. So I think especially using a dietitian can kind of break it apart a little bit, make it a little bit easier to absorb and then therefore follow.
Yeah, and I would say too, if you do have any other health conditions that you are living with, I would definitely recommend seeing a dietitian to make sure that implementing these intuitive eating principles doesn't go against the things that you need to do for your health condition. So for example, one of the principles is basically to allow ourselves to eat, to give ourselves unconditional permission to eat and to eat whatever we want. However, if you have celiac disease, I really still don't want you to eat gluten. I think that would be harmful to you. And so when we give ourselves unconditional permission to eat, it needs to be unconditional permission to eat things that are still good for us. And so finding that balance with a dietitian can be really helpful. And I also agree with what Jess said, where a dietitian can really help you navigate these things. Sometimes as we're going through an intuitive eating journey, some unexpected things might come up or might happen to us. And so a dietitian can really help us work through those moments and let us know, hey, like what you're feeling right now is actually totally normal for this phase that you're in. And here's how we can work through it. So that can be helpful. If you are just kind of, like Jess said, looking for a way to focus more on your food or improve your relationship with your food and your body, I think intuitive eating is a great place to start. And looking at the book by Evelyn Tribble and Elise Resch is a really great resource. But even just meeting with a dietitian once to say, hey, I'm interested in intuitive eating. What can you tell me about it? Could also be a good option. So even if you're not looking for like a long-term relationship with an RD, it could still be helpful to get their input as you start this journey. So the book title is Intuitive Eating, a Revolutionary Anti-Diet Approach. It is now on its 4th edition, and the authors are Evelyn Tribble and Elise Resch. We can type it in the chat real quick, and it is also in our references here.
Yeah, wonderful information. I'll also make sure in the follow-up email that we note that book as well. So yeah, 10 principles. That can be a lot to try to take in and work on all at once. So it's great that you all decided to highlight a few. And then yeah, for those that may be looking into intuitive eating, encouraging maybe instead of trying to do all 10 at once at the same time, try to work on a few, and once you kind of start mastering those, then maybe a few more. So great information. Really appreciate y'all's time and information today. Thought it was very eye-opening and helpful, and a great different approach than what we're probably used to learning about when it comes to nutrition. So thank you all so much, and have a wonderful rest of your day.